The sun had just begun its harsh crawl over the hills of Camp Pendleton, and the morning air already shimmered with heat. Recruits trudged across the sand in a rigid line, their boots sinking slightly into the warm grains. Some wiped sweat from their brows, others kept their eyes straight ahead, trying to ignore the burning sun and the endless shouts from the drill instructors. Among them, Eli Carver moved with a quiet, almost invisible determination. He was tall but thin, his frame betraying no hint of brute strength, only a wiry resilience honed from years of running alone on the streets of small-town Texas. His dark hair clung to his forehead with sweat, and his hazel eyes, unusually sharp and observant, darted across the range with a kind of instinctual awareness that made him seem older than his 18 years. Most recruits had been prepped, groomed, and drilled to look the part, confident, loud, and aggressive. Eli had none of that. He didn't talk, he didn't show off. He didn't laugh with the others or make empty boasts about his strength or past achievements. He was a ghost in the ranks, unnoticed, unremarkable. And maybe that was exactly why he was about to do something that would make even the hardened General Marcus Hale, overseeing the evaluation today, stop in his tracks. General Hale, a man of 6'2" with a jawline carved from years of field operations, had seen everything from ambushes in Iraq to hostage rescues in the most remote corners of the world. Decades in the Marines had taught him that extraordinary skill could appear in the most unlikely of forms, but even he was not prepared for what Eli would show him. The range was set up with precision. Steel targets were positioned at various distances, some stationary, others moving, each designed to test a recruit's ability under pressure. Drill instructors circled like hawks, whistles piercing the air, voices booming commands. The sound of rifles cocking and shots echoing across the expanse filled the hot, dry air. Most recruits followed the script perfectly. Shoulder the rifle, aim, fire, check results, repeat. But Eli's movements were different, slightly slower, deliberate, each motion precise, almost ritualistic. He adjusted the rifle manually, without a scope, calculating angles by the sun's position, the slight shimmer of heat on the sand, the wind brushing against his cheek. He was quiet, focused, a predator in human form. General Hale, watching through his binoculars, noticed him only after Eli's hands moved with a precision that seemed unnatural for a recruit. Hale squinted. Something about the way Eli adjusted the sights, the way his fingers caressed the trigger, stirred a memory buried deep in his mind, an instinctive recognition. The recruits around Eli fired shot after shot, their rifles echoing through the morning air. Some hit their targets, some missed. But when Eli raised his rifle, Hale felt a prickle on the back of his neck, the kind of sensation that only came when witnessing something rare, something extraordinary. Eli's hazel eyes locked on the target as though he could see the bullet's path before firing. He inhaled slowly, then exhaled, steadying his body. The rifle cracked once. The first bullet struck the primary target dead center, but what made Hale freeze in disbelief was the second target, positioned slightly behind the first. It didn't just rattle, it shattered. A clean, impossibly precise shot, executed with perfect timing, as though the two targets were connected in Eli's mind by an invisible thread. Hale lowered his binoculars, stunned. His pulse quickened. Only one man had ever fired a shot like that before, a Marine so legendary that his name was almost myth, Captain Jackson Carver, codename Ghostline. He had made that same shot during a classified mission decades ago, one that became the subject of whispered reverence and heavily restricted tactical training manuals. And he had disappeared without a trace 26 years earlier. The name hit Hale like a thunderclap. Ghostline, that shot. It wasn't just talent, it was technique, mastery, instinct honed to a level Hale had only ever seen once. And now, standing in front of him, was a recruit with the same last name. Eli lowered his rifle, hands trembling ever so slightly as if he hadn't intended to reveal his gift, or perhaps hadn't intended for anyone to see. Around him, chaos buzzed. Instructors shouted, recruits gawked. But Eli remained calm, almost unnervingly so. He returned the rifle to his shoulder with mechanical precision, blending back into the anonymity he preferred. Hale's mind raced. The probability of Eli being related to Ghostline wasn't zero, but it was astronomical. And yet, there he was, performing feats that were nearly impossible to replicate. His pulse tightened, a combination of curiosity and unease gripping him. "Carver," Hale said, his voice low but carrying authority. The drill instructor stiffened at the unexpected command. "Step forward." Eli froze for a moment, scanning the line before stepping out. His eyes didn't waver. They were steady, unnervingly mature, as if he were used to being scrutinized. Hale walked toward him, each step deliberate, his boots crunching against the sand. Every recruit instinctively held their posture, knowing that this moment was unlike any other in their training. "You've been observed," Hale began, his tone measured but intense. "Explain this." He gestured at the shattered second target. "Where did you learn to shoot like that?" Eli's jaw tightened. He looked Hale directly in the eye, unflinching. "Sir, I don't know what you mean," he said quietly. Hale's brow furrowed. He had heard that tone before, the tone of someone lying convincingly or someone protecting a secret too big to tell. "Don't lie to me, recruit," Hale said, leaning closer. "Only one Marine in history ever fired that shot. Captain Jackson Carver. You have that last name for a reason. Care to explain?" Eli's hands clenched at his sides. His mouth opened, then closed. The heat of the sun, the weight of scrutiny, the storm of adrenaline, he had never been this exposed before. "My father," he finally whispered, voice trembling but controlled, "but I never met him." Hale froze, the words hanging heavy in the air. The realization hit him like ice water. Ghostline's son was standing before him. But more than that, he had inherited not just his father's skill, but something deeper. A presence, an instinct that couldn't be taught. Hale swallowed hard, trying to mask his shock. "Your father disappeared decades ago, officially killed in the line of duty." Eli's eyes darkened. "No, sir, he didn't die, he disappeared. And my mother, she was told to stop asking questions, that's all I know." Hale's pulse raced. The legend of Ghostline had always been shrouded in mystery, a tale of brilliance and sacrifice. And here suddenly it wasn't a legend. It was real, standing in front of him, alive in some form through his son. Hale's hand instinctively went to his chin, rubbing absent-mindedly. "If you've inherited this skill, then you know things you shouldn't. Techniques, methods, knowledge that isn't in the manuals. And yet, you didn't even realize you were displaying it." Eli swallowed. His voice was barely audible. "I didn't mean to. I just do what feels right." Hale studied him closely. He could see the spark of brilliance, the quiet intensity, the latent danger. There was a storm inside Eli Carver, a storm that could either make him a hero or destroy him. And then, as if on cue, a runner dashed toward them from the far end of the range. Hale's jaw tightened as the man's face carried a gravity that made him stop dead in his tracks. He held a sealed envelope in trembling hands. "General Hale, sir," the runner panted. "It's urgent. It concerns Captain Jackson Carver." The words hit Hale like a gunshot. He turned to Eli, who froze, eyes wide. Something had begun, something that would unravel decades of lies and secrecy. Something that would test everything Eli thought he knew about his father, his family, and himself. For the first time in Hale's career, he felt fear, not for himself, but for the boy who had just fired a shot that could change history. Eli's chest tightened. The weight of his father's legacy, the shadow of Ghostline, had just landed on him, and there was no turning back. The desert wind kicked up dust around them, swirling like a warning. And somewhere, far away but impossibly close, a past that was never truly gone was waiting. The morning heat hadn't cooled, but suddenly the desert air felt heavier. Every recruit around Eli Carver seemed frozen, eyes darting between the shattered targets, their own rifles, and the imposing figure of General Marcus Hale, whose normally impassive face now betrayed a rare and unmistakable shock. Hale had seen countless displays of skill in his 34 years of service, but this was something entirely different. The sound of the bullet tearing through the second target had left a ringing silence in its wake, broken only by the nervous shuffle of boots in the sand. Drill instructors barked orders, but their commands seemed to fade in the background for Hale. He didn't see recruits fumbling. He didn't see the others' awe or envy. All he could see was Eli, standing there, rifle lowered, as if the weight of the shot he had just fired wasn't extraordinary at all. Hale's binoculars slipped from his hands, almost forgotten, as he took a slow, deliberate step forward. He felt a cold prickle run down his spine, a familiar, instinctive warning that something remarkable and possibly dangerous was unfolding before him. The truth hit him suddenly. He was looking at the son of Ghostline. Captain Jackson Carver, Marine legend, codenamed Ghostline, had executed that exact shot decades ago. Only once in history, recorded in classified operational manuals, had such precision been achieved. Ghostline had vanished without a trace 26 years earlier, and here, the impossible had returned in the form of a quiet, wiry recruit, barely 18, carrying the same last name. Hale's mind raced. There were too many variables, too many coincidences to be accidental. Yet, the possibility that this boy was carrying not just the legacy but the technique itself, passed down somehow, inexplicably, was almost beyond comprehension. Eli glanced around nervously, as if sensing Hale's gaze piercing him. His hands fidgeted around the rifle strap, though his posture remained unnervingly steady. He didn't speak. He rarely spoke. And yet Hale felt the quiet intensity radiating from him, the kind that commanded attention without a word. The drill instructors regained their composure first. One barked, Recruit Carver moved to the next station. But Eli only gave a small nod and obeyed mechanically. Every movement was precise, measured, almost ritualistic. Hale frowned. This was no ordinary training. This was something deeper, something instinctual, something learned in a way that defied normal instruction. Hale approached slowly, his boots crunching against the sand. "Recruit Carver," he called, voice low but firm. "Step aside, I need to speak with you." Eli froze, then complied, walking toward the shade of an observation tower. Hale followed, nodding the way the boy's eyes flicked to every moving target, every other recruit, and then back to Hale. There was awareness there, alertness beyond training, alertness that belonged to a predator or a soldier who had already seen too much. Hale studied him carefully. "Where did you learn that shot?" he asked, gesturing toward the shattered target. Eli's jaw tightened, and for a moment the faintest tremor passed over his hands. "Sir, I don't know what you mean," he said quietly. Hale's brow furrowed. He had encountered this tone before, used to lying, used to hiding the truth, but never this combination of innocence and subtle defiance. "Don't lie to me, recruit," he said. "Only one Marine in history ever fired that shot. Captain Jackson Carver. You share his last name. Care to explain?" Eli's hands tightened at his sides. The wind stirred, tossing grit across the range. "My father," he said finally, his voice steady but soft. "But I never met him." The words hit Hale harder than a punch. Ghostline had been officially reported dead during a covert mission in Eastern Europe. 26 years ago, an explosion had ended his life, or so the Marines had said. And now here stood his son, inheriting the impossible skill that had made Jackson Carver a legend. "Your father disappeared," Hale said carefully, keeping his voice low. "He was declared dead. This skill you have, it's not something you inherit by accident. Who taught you?" Eli shook his head, eyes dropping. "No one, sir. My mother, she said he disappeared and the Marines told her to stop asking questions. That's all I know." Hale exhaled slowly, his mind working faster than he could speak. The implications were staggering. If Eli had inherited that shot, that instinct, without direct instruction, there were two possibilities. One, a genetic inheritance of extraordinary skill, or two, something he had witnessed and absorbed without anyone realizing. Either way, it was dangerous knowledge in the wrong hands. The general's pulse quickened as he considered the next step. The boy had just performed a shot that should have been impossible for anyone at his level. There was more to this than training, more than genetics. It was precision, timing, anticipation, awareness. Something that belonged to Jackson Carver alone. Then a runner came sprinting across the range, uniform dust-covered, eyes wide with urgency. "General Hale, sir. It's urgent. It concerns Captain Jackson Carver." Hale froze, a chill crawling down his spine. Eli's eyes widened, disbelief flickering across his face. For the first time, the controlled calm he usually projected cracked, replaced by the raw surge of adrenaline and fear. The runner handed over a sealed envelope, shaking. Eli stepped back instinctively, the weight of his father's shadow pressing down on him. The name Ghostline, once a legend buried in history, had just returned, not as a myth, but as a reality, one that was now tangibly tied to him. Hale took the envelope and tore it open. Inside was a brief, classified message marked top secret, with cryptic handwriting that sent a shiver down his spine. The text wasn't long, but the implications were enormous. It referenced a location, a code, and a warning, one that spoke to the boy directly, numbing him. Eli's pulse pounded. It says my father's alive," he whispered, disbelief and hope colliding. Hale's eyes narrowed. "It does more than that. It suggests he's in danger and that he's trying to reach you. Somehow he believes you can help." The desert air seemed to tighten around them. The sound of distant gunfire drills, the echoing whistles, the mundane chaos of the range, it all faded into insignificance. There was only the envelope, the name of the legendary Marine, and the weight of a secret that had been buried for decades. Eli swallowed hard. But why me? Why now? Hale looked at him, eyes cold but assessing. "Because the knowledge he passed on, it's dangerous, and you just revealed it to the world, or at least to those watching. Someone is listening. Someone is waiting." Eli's hand trembled slightly, the first visible crack in his otherwise composed demeanor. Listening, waiting for what? Before Hale could answer, a distant vibration shook the range, a subtle, almost imperceptible signal that only someone attuned to military operations might notice. Hale's eyes widened. "They're here," he whispered. Eli's stomach dropped. "Who's here?" Hale didn't answer. He couldn't. The truth was too complicated, too dangerous. But the way his gaze hardened, scanning the horizon, spoke volumes. Someone with eyes on the range knew about Eli, knew about Ghostline, and knew the threat that the boy now posed simply by existing. The sun climbed higher, casting long shadows over the recruits. Eli felt the weight of history pressing down on him. Every lesson he hadn't learned, every skill he hadn't trained for, suddenly mattered more than ever. His father's legacy, the myth of Ghostline, was alive in him now, and it was dangerous. Hale reached out, gripping Eli's shoulder firmly. "You need to understand one thing," he said, voice low, intense. "Your father didn't just disappear. He left a trail. And that trail, it's starting with you. If you want to survive what's coming, you need to trust me. And more than that, you need to trust yourself." Eli swallowed hard, the weight of the moment pressing him to the ground. He nodded slowly, heart hammering, pulse racing, mind spinning. He didn't fully understand what was happening, but he knew one thing with absolute clarity: nothing about this day would ever be normal again. The wind kicked up, tossing sand across the range like a warning. The targets glinted in the sun, reminders of what he had just accomplished and what had just begun. And somewhere, far beyond the horizon, a shadow of the past stirred, waiting for the boy who had just made history in one shot. The first part of Eli's journey had ended. The real challenge, the uncovering of truths buried for decades, the confrontation with enemies unseen, the pursuit of a father who might still be alive, was only beginning. And somewhere in the shadows, eyes watched, waiting for the moment to strike. Because Eli Carver had just stepped into a story far bigger than himself, and the world didn't yet know it. The desert heat pressed down like a physical weight as General Marcus Hale led Eli Carver away from the firing range. Dust swirled around their boots, shimmering in the relentless sunlight, but the chaos of the recruits and drill instructors felt distant, almost irrelevant. Hale's mind raced. Every instinct honed over decades told him this was bigger than a training exercise. This was not a coincidence, not talent. Something far older, far more dangerous had just revealed itself, and Eli, standing silently beside him, was the epicenter. Hale led him to a shaded observation tower, the metal steps groaning under their weight. Inside, the coolness of the tin roof offered little relief, but it allowed Hale to focus without the distractions of shouting recruits. He leaned on the railing, eyes narrowing at Eli. "I need answers," he said, voice low but firm. "Now." Eli's hands fidgeted, gripping the railing as though he were holding himself together. "I've told you, sir. I don't know anything beyond what my mother said," he replied, voice steady but faintly trembling. "He disappeared. She said he was gone, that's all." Hale studied him, taking in the boy's posture, the tension in his shoulders, the subtle flicker of fear in his eyes. This wasn't just a recruit with exceptional skills. This was a child of legend carrying a legacy no one should have survived to pass on. "Your father, Eli Captain Jackson Carver, Ghostline, he didn't just disappear. He was part of a classified program, one so secret that most Marines today only know his name from training manuals. He was a sniper, an operative. A ghost in the most literal sense." Eli blinked, absorbing the weight of the words. The desert wind rattled the tower as if urging him to listen closer. "Ghostline," he whispered. That's him." "Yes," Hale replied, his voice quieter now, almost reverent. "He was extraordinary, a legend, the best sniper I've ever seen. And the shot you just made, that was his signature. Only one man has ever executed it with that level of precision. Only one." Eli's breath caught in his throat. The idea of inheriting something so impossible to fake, pressed down on him. I didn't know I could." Hale's expression hardened. "You did, and that's what worries me. Because if someone else knows about this, they'll come for you. They'll come for your father's legacy, for the techniques he mastered, and now, inadvertently, for you." A hush fell over the observation tower. Outside, the recruits continued their drills, oblivious to the storm unfolding above them. Hale pulled a sealed envelope from his jacket. A runner had delivered it moments ago and handed it to Eli. The envelope trembled slightly in his hands, as though containing something alive. Eli tore it open, revealing a single, folded piece of paper. On it were coordinates and a brief, scrawled message. "Eli, trust no one, find me, Jackson." Eli froze. The handwriting, it was unmistakable. The same fluid, precise penmanship his mother had shown him in an old photograph, tucked into a scrapbook he had never dared touch until now. His father was alive. After 26 years, he was alive, and he was calling out to him. Hale's eyes followed his every movement, reading the silent reaction. "You see," he said quietly, "your father isn't dead. He's been operating under the radar, hiding from forces even we thought long gone, and now he's reached out to you for a reason." "But why me?" Eli's voice cracked slightly. "Why now? Why send me coordinates instead of telling the Marines?" Hale exhaled slowly, his brow furrowed. "Because Jackson Carver never trusted anyone, not the military, not intelligence agencies. He went off the grid years ago because he discovered a threat, a rogue element within our ranks, working with mercenary groups that shouldn't exist. He knows something. Someone is waiting for him, and they're willing to kill to keep it hidden. That's why he reached out to you, because only you can follow the trail without raising suspicion, without being noticed." Eli's pulse raced. The idea that his father had not just disappeared but was actively being hunted was almost too much to comprehend. His hands shook slightly as he folded the paper and clutched it to his chest. "Hunted? By who?" Hale's jaw tightened. "That we don't know yet, but someone knew about your presence on the range. Someone knew about your skills before you even realized you had them. The shot you fired, it wasn't just seen by me. It was recorded, tracked, and analyzed. They know who you are, Eli, and they're coming." The wind outside picked up, rattling the metal roof of the tower. The sun glinted off distant sand dunes, making them shimmer like an endless ocean. Eli felt the weight of history pressing down on him, the pressure of a father's legacy, the burden of skills he had only begun to understand. Hale's voice broke the momentary silence. "We have to move, now." Eli hesitated. "Move where?" "Somewhere safe, somewhere we can strategize. Your father's message, it's the first piece of a puzzle, and if we don't follow it quickly, we might never get another chance." Hale's eyes hardened. "Do you understand me?" Eli nodded slowly, swallowing hard. His mind was a whirlwind of fear, excitement, confusion. The boy who had walked onto the range this morning, unnoticed and quiet, was now the focal point of a decades-long mystery, the center of a storm he could not yet see in full. They moved quickly down the tower stairs, Hale leading the way, scanning constantly. Recruits and instructors noticed nothing unusual. The normal cadence of the range continued, masking the tension of what was really happening. Hale and Eli ducked into a side corridor, where Hale had secured a small, nondescript room. Inside, a single table and chair awaited, along with a laptop connected to a secure military network. Hale gestured for Eli to sit. "This is where we start," he said. "We pull every piece of intel we can on your father on Ghostline, on any operations he was involved in that might still be active. There's no time to waste." Eli sank into the chair, hands gripping the edge, trying to steady himself. "Sir, what if he's in trouble? What if he's hurt?" Hale placed a hand on his shoulder, firm but steady. "He is alive, Eli. That much we know. And if he reached out to you, it means he believes you can help him. But first, we need information. We need to understand what we're dealing with. Only then can we act." The laptop screen flickered to life, revealing classified files. Names, missions, locations, dates, everything Ghostline had touched in his career, much of it hidden from public record. Eli's eyes widened as images of his father, young and formidable, flashed across the screen. Ghostline in training, Ghostline in action, Ghostline with a rifle in hand, executing shots that defied logic and physics. "Every detail counts," Hale said. "Every scrap of intel might be a clue to where your father is or why he's being hunted. And Eli, you need to understand, the moment we step out of this room, everything changes. We're no longer just Marines on a range. We're now part of something bigger, something dangerous." Eli swallowed, staring at the files. The weight of his father's legacy pressed down on him. Every instinct, every skill he had just begun to grasp was now a tool he would need. But for the first time, the enormity of the challenge became clear. He wasn't just fighting to understand his father. He was fighting to survive long enough to find him. Suddenly, a knock at the door shattered the tense silence. Hale's hand instinctively went to his side, and Eli's heart jumped. The knock was soft, almost deliberate. Hale motioned for Eli to stay back as he opened the door slowly. No one was there, just a folded envelope lying on the floor, stamped with a symbol neither of them recognized. Eli picked it up, unfolding the paper inside. His eyes widened as he read a single line written in the same familiar handwriting. "They're closer than you think. Trust no one. Find me before it's too late." The words were a hammer to Eli's chest. His father was alive, and someone or something was hunting them, already closing in. Hale's eyes met Eli. "You see, Eli, the moment you fired that shot, you became a target, and now there's no turning back." Eli swallowed hard, heart pounding, mind racing. The boy who had walked onto the range this morning, unnoticed and unremarkable, was now the center of a storm that stretched far beyond the California desert, beyond the Marines, beyond anything he had ever imagined. And somewhere out there, Ghostline was waiting, calling him into a world of danger, secrets, and a father he had never known. Outside, the desert wind picked up again, whispering through the dunes like a warning. Eli folded the envelope carefully, tucking it into his jacket. Whatever lay ahead, the first step had already been taken, and the hunt for answers for his father, for survival, had begun. The world outside the tower was ordinary. Inside, it had become a battlefield. And Eli Carver, son of Ghostline, had just entered the war. The safe room hummed with quiet tension. The laptop's glow reflected off Eli Carver's wide eyes as General Marcus Hale scrolled through files that seemed to stretch back decades. Names, locations, dates, mission logs, all meticulously documented. But it wasn't just the volume that unsettled Eli. It was the purpose behind it. Each entry was a breadcrumb trail leading somewhere dangerous. Hale leaned back in the chair, the lines on his face deepening. Your father, he was more than a sniper, Eli. He wasn't just Ghostline. He was an operative, a strategist, and, most importantly, he was a ghost in ways that no one alive should understand. His missions weren't only classified. Some of them didn't exist on any record at all. Eli swallowed hard, heart pounding. How could he just disappear? Hale's gaze hardened. Because he was hunted, and he knew he'd have to vanish completely to survive, not just from enemies overseas, but from someone inside, someone he once trusted. That's why he sent the message to you. He couldn't trust anyone else. Eli's hands shook slightly as he scrolled through files. Pictures of his father flashed across the screen. Ghostline crouched behind a sniper's scope, perched on rooftops, disappearing into shadows. Tactical diagrams, satellite images, and mission notes filled the folders. Each file painted a picture of a man operating at the edge of human skill and endurance. But there was one file that caught Hale's attention and made him pause, a video recording marked classified, EYES only. He clicked play. Static filled the screen before the image cleared. There on the grainy footage was Jackson Carver, younger, hardened, his eyes scanning a hostile cityscape with calm precision. The camera captured a moment that sent a chill down Eli's spine. Jackson raised his rifle, took a single breath, and fired. The bullet struck a target that was moving impossibly fast, a shot Eli recognized instinctively. Hale leaned closer. That's the shot you just fired, the exact one. Only one other person has ever executed it, your father. Eli's jaw tightened. But I didn't even know I could do that. That's the point, Hale said. It's not just skill, it's instinct. And it's dangerous. Whoever knows about it will stop at nothing to control it. The laptop pinged with another notification. Hale opened it. A satellite signal had been detected, one that matched Ghostline's old operational patterns. The message was encoded but clearly came from his father, and the timing couldn't be ignored. The signal indicated an active distress, a location deep in enemy territory. Eli's stomach twisted. He's alive, he's calling for help. Hale nodded. And someone knows he's trying to reach us. That's why we have to move fast. There's no time to waste. Whoever is hunting your father is methodical. They're efficient. And they've already seen what you can do. Eli felt the weight of the legacy pressing down on him. The skills he had just begun to understand weren't just impressive, they were a target. But how do we even start to find him? He's been gone for 26 years. Hale exhaled slowly. By understanding the trail he left, every mission, every file, every detail matters. Your father never did anything by accident. He left clues, hidden in plain sight, for someone he could trust, or someone he thought could follow them if the worst happened. Hale guided Eli through the files. There were operational notes hidden in civilian locations, coded messages buried in old training manuals, and photographs marked with symbols only Ghostline could decipher. Each file revealed more than tactical knowledge. It revealed a man who had planned for every eventuality, every threat, every betrayal. Then Hale opened a folder labeled Project GHOSTLNE Active. Eli's breath caught. The files inside were recent. They weren't decades old, they were from last year. Satellite images, intercepted communications, and coded messages indicated that Jackson Carver had survived years beyond what anyone believed possible. He was alive, moving, hiding, and actively trying to send signals that only his son could decipher. Eli's hands trembled. He's been alive all this time. Hale nodded, face grim. Yes, and he's been sending messages quietly. You just didn't notice them until now. This isn't just a family reunion waiting to happen, it's a race. And if we don't act, we might never find him. Eli's mind spun. The weight of his father's legacy, the enormity of the mission, and the threats surrounding them pressed in from all sides. But why me? Why now? Hale's gaze met his. Because you have the skill, the instinct, the connection your father left behind, and because you fired that shot just marked you as part of the story, part of the war your father never wanted to fight alone. The room went silent for a moment, the only sound the quiet hum of the laptop. Then a subtle vibration ran through the floor, an alert, a signal almost imperceptible. Hale stiffened. "They're here," he muttered. Eli froze. Who's here? Hale shook his head. "I don't know, but the moment you showed that skill, someone recognized it. Someone knows about the legacy you've inherited and they're watching." Suddenly the door rattled. Hale moved instantly, blocking Eli from view. A figure slipped through the doorframe, tall, covered in shadow. Hale's hand went to his side, but the figure simply dropped an envelope on the table and disappeared. No one was outside, just the wind. Eli picked up the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a single note, written in the familiar scrawl of his father. "They're closer than you think. Trust no one. Find me before it's too late." Eli's heart hammered. His father was alive, and someone or some organization was hunting him, already closing in. Hale's voice broke the silence. "Eli, the moment you fired that shot, you became part of something far larger than this training exercise. You're a target. And if you want to find your father, you have to accept that nothing you know about safety, loyalty, or the military is guaranteed. You can trust me, but even I can't protect you from everything. Only you can follow the trail he left." Eli folded the note carefully, his mind racing. The files, the signals, the cryptic message, they formed a puzzle he had never imagined. Every skill he had just begun to uncover, every instinct that seemed to appear out of nowhere would now be tested. The hunt had begun. Outside, the desert wind whistled through the dunes. The sun beat down relentlessly. But inside the small safe room, a storm was gathering, a storm that would push Eli beyond the limits of training, of fear, of what he thought possible. Hale looked at him, eyes intense. "We leave tonight. The coordinates your father sent, that's where we start. And Eli, you need to understand, the moment we step into that world, there's no turning back. No training, no reinforcements, no backup. Just you, your instincts, and your father." Eli swallowed hard. His hands shook. His pulse raced. The boy who had walked onto the range this morning, unnoticed, had become the center of a decades-long mystery, a living key to a legacy that was more dangerous than anyone could imagine. He nodded slowly. "I understand, sir. I'm ready." Hale studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Good, because your father isn't waiting, and whoever's hunting him, they won't wait either." Outside, the wind rose again, carrying dust across the dunes like a warning. Inside, Eli Carver folded the note, his mind racing. Every instinct, every skill, every shadow of his father's legacy would now be tested. And somewhere out there, the man who had disappeared 26 years ago, Ghostline, was waiting. Waiting for his son to find him. And waiting for a war that had been brewing long before Eli was born to begin. The evening sun was bleeding crimson over Camp Pendleton, casting long shadows across the sand. The recruits had long gone home, leaving the range eerily silent except for the wind whispering across the dunes. But inside the small, secured room that General Marcus Hale had commandeered for Eli, a new reality was taking shape. Hale stood before the young recruit, arms folded, eyes hard and unyielding. "Eli," he said, his voice carrying a weight that made the boy flinch slightly, "what you did on the range this morning, that shot wasn't just a display of skill. It was a signal. And now you have to become more than a recruit. You have to become someone who can survive in a world your father left behind. Someone who can find him, and someone who can fight forces you haven't even imagined yet." Eli swallowed, hands gripping the edge of the metal table. "Sir, I don't know if I can. I barely know what I'm capable of." Hale's expression softened for the briefest moment. "You don't know what you're capable of because no one in this room has taught you. Your father, he didn't just pass on skills. He passed on instincts. And instincts, they only work when you learn to trust them." Over the next several hours, Hale put Eli through an impromptu initiation, unlike anything he had ever experienced in Marine training. No drill instructors, no scripted exercises. Everything was tailored to test his mind, body, and instincts simultaneously. First came observation and perception drills. Hale set up moving targets at varying distances, not just for shooting accuracy but for pattern recognition. Eli had to identify threats in complex scenarios, decoys, camouflage targets, even human-shaped silhouettes moving unpredictably across the desert. Each shot he fired was measured not just for precision, but for timing, judgment, and situational awareness. Then came mental acuity tests. Hale presented maps, cryptic messages, and mission files from Ghostland's old operations. Eli had to decode patterns, identify hidden coordinates, and predict enemy movements. For the first time, the boy realized that his father's genius wasn't just in marksmanship. It was in strategy, patience, and anticipation. Every move Ghostline had made was part of a larger puzzle, and now Eli had to solve it in real time. Hours stretched into the night. By the time Hale finally paused, Eli was exhausted, sweat-soaked, and trembling. But something deeper had awakened. His mind was sharper, more alert, and his instincts felt alive in ways he hadn't realized existed. Hale watched him carefully. "Good, that's the start, but it's not enough. We need to push you further. Your father's world, it's dangerous. And the people hunting him and now you, they're not ordinary enemies. They don't follow rules, they don't hesitate, and they don't fail often." Eli's pulse raced at the weight of the revelation. "Enemies inside the Marines?" he asked quietly. Hale's jaw tightened. "Some of them, some outside. Your father discovered a network years ago, a rogue faction with resources, skills, and connections that make anything in official channels look amateur. That's why he vanished. That's why he's sending messages now. And that's why you have to be ready." Next came field tactics training. Hale led Eli to hidden positions around the range, simulating hostile incursions and ambushes. Eli had to navigate silently, identify threats, and neutralize them without leaving a trace. Each exercise was timed, recorded, and critiqued. Hale was relentless, pointing out every mistake, every hesitation, every inefficiency. By the third hour, Eli's legs were screaming, his hands raw from gripping the rifle and his lungs burning. But something deeper had taken root. A growing confidence, a connection to his father's legacy that went beyond physical skill. He could feel the instinct, almost like a pulse running through his veins, an awareness of angles, distances, and timing that seemed to come from somewhere beyond him. Hale paused him at the edge of a dune, the moonlight reflecting off the sand. "Listen to me, Eli. What you feel, that instinct, is not just talent, it's a guide. Your father left it in you. Ghostline wouldn't have survived all these years without instincts like that. And now you're carrying them forward. But instincts alone won't save you. Discipline, patience, and knowledge will." Eli nodded, sweat dripping from his brow, his body aching, but a spark had ignited in his eyes. "I understand, sir. I can feel it." Hale's gaze softened, then hardened again. "Good, because it won't be enough to just feel it. You're going to face situations that will challenge every part of you, morally, mentally, physically. There will be no training manual, no one to hold your hand. And if you fail, you won't just fail yourself. You'll fail your father. and he can't afford failure, not now, not ever. After a brief pause, Hale leaned in, voice dropping to a whisper. Tomorrow we leave. We follow the coordinates your father sent, and Eli, be ready. This is just the beginning. The room was silent except for Eli's ragged breathing. The weight of what was coming pressed down on him, almost suffocating. Every instinct, every skill, every shred of training his father had passed on. Now it was all real, and real meant danger. That night Eli barely slept. The envelope lay on the table beside him, coordinates written in his father's precise handwriting glowing in the faint moonlight. Questions tore through him. Where was his father hiding? Who was hunting him? And why had he chosen Eli, of all people, to follow him into this labyrinth of danger? When dawn broke, Hale was already awake, organizing gear, weapons, and tactical maps. Eli rose slowly, muscles stiff but mind alert. Hale handed him a small notebook. Every detail matters. Write everything down. Every observation, every movement, every pattern you notice. Ghostline left trails for a reason, and you need to follow them. Eli took the notebook, fingers brushing the paper, feeling the weight of the responsibility pressing down on him. Sir, I don't know if I'm ready. Hale fixed him with a steady gaze. Ready doesn't exist anymore, Eli. You either go or you let your father face this alone, and you can't afford that. Trust your instincts, trust what you've learned. And remember this, your father isn't just a man. He's a symbol of what you can become. If you want to survive, if you want to find him, you have to be more than yourself. They moved through the camp in silence, gathering supplies, weapons, and communication devices. Every step felt weighted, the desert stretching endlessly around them. Somewhere in the shadows, Hale knew eyes were watching. Someone somewhere had noticed the shot, had recognized the legacy, and was preparing to strike. As they loaded their gear into a nondescript vehicle, Eli couldn't help but glance back at the range. It had been the place where everything started, his moment of skill, the spark that had revealed him to the world, and the trigger that had begun a chain reaction he couldn't stop. Hale noticed his gaze. Don't look back, he said quietly. Once we leave, everything changes. There's no going back. And Eli, you'll need to keep your mind sharp, your instincts sharper, and your heart even sharper. Because the first step of this mission will test all three. Eli nodded, gripping the notebook and the envelope tightly. His pulse raced. The journey ahead was unknown, dangerous, and impossible by any standard he had ever known. But something deep inside him, a connection to the father he had never met, a legacy he had just begun to understand, drove him forward. The vehicle started, wheels crunching on the sand. The desert stretched endlessly, the rising sun casting long shadows behind them. Eli's heart pounded, but for the first time it wasn't just fear, it was determination. Somewhere out there, Jackson Carver Ghostline was alive, waiting for his son, and the forces hunting him were closing in fast. Eli Carver had taken his first real step into a world of danger, legacy, and secrets. A world where every shot, every decision, every instinct could mean the difference between life and death. And the hunt had officially begun. The desert was fading into shadows as Eli Carver and General Marcus Hale drove along a dusty back road, far from the prying eyes of anyone who might be watching. Hale's hands gripped the wheel with the practiced calm of a man who had faced danger more times than he cared to count, but even he carried a tightness in his jaw, an unspoken awareness that every mile brought them closer to forces unseen and potentially deadly. Eli sat rigid in the passenger seat, the envelope from his father resting on his lap like a fragile lifeline. His eyes scanned the horizon, tracing every movement of the shifting dunes, every flicker of the distant brush, every shadow that seemed to move against the wind. His instincts, awakened and sharpened by Hale's relentless training, whispered warnings he couldn't ignore. This wasn't just a journey, it was a hunt, and he was now both predator and prey. Your father's message, Hale began, voice low, breaking the tense silence, wasn't just a set of coordinates. It was a breadcrumb trail. Ghostline doesn't send anything without a reason. That location, if we interpret it correctly, will be the first point of contact. Eli nodded, swallowing hard. Do we know who we're dealing with yet? The ones hunting him, are they ex-Marines, mercenaries, something else? Hale shook his head. That's what we don't know, but they're skilled, methodical. They've managed to stay hidden for years, possibly decades, and now they know you exist, and that changes everything. The vehicle rumbled over a narrow pass, and Hale's eyes narrowed. In the distance, a faint shimmer of light reflected off a metallic object partially buried in sand. Hale's instincts kicked in instantly. He signaled Eli to duck as he slowed the vehicle, scanning the terrain. "What is it?" Eli whispered. Hale leaned out slightly, shading his eyes. Could be nothing. Could be a trap. Ghostline always anticipated threats before they appeared. This might be his way of warning us or luring us into danger. Eli's pulse quickened. He reached for the notebook, flipping to the page where he had transcribed every note and pattern from the classified files. The coordinates didn't match any civilian maps, but the notes hinted at landmarks only Ghostline would recognize. "Sir, there's a pattern here. Look at the ridge line, the shadows. It aligns with the coordinates. This isn't random." Hale's eyes softened for a moment, a rare flicker of admiration passing over his weathered face. "Good eye, Eli. That's what I've been waiting for. Your father would be proud." They moved cautiously toward the ridge, the vehicle leaving a faint trail in the sand. Every step felt like a calculated risk, every shadow a potential threat. Hale carried a small rifle slung across his shoulder, and Eli's hand hovered near his own weapon, tension coiling in his chest. As they crested the ridge, the landscape opened into a hidden canyon, almost perfectly concealed by natural rock formations and dunes. Sunlight streamed in at an angle, illuminating a small, makeshift encampment partially camouflaged with desert brush. Hale signaled Eli to stay low. "Looks abandoned," Hale murmured, eyes scanning the perimeter. But as they approached, Eli noticed subtle signs: disturbed sand, faint footprints, and a small, almost invisible marker etched into a rock face, a symbol he recognized from his father's files. His breath caught. "It's him, this is his mark." Hale nodded. "Yes, and that means someone been here recently, possibly following the trail as well." They moved closer, stepping over rocks and ducking behind natural cover. In the center of the encampment was a small crate, weathered but clearly maintained, with a lock that had been recently oiled. Hale crouched beside it, inspecting the crate carefully. Could be supplies, could be a message. Your father likes to leave information in places like this, secure but accessible to the right person. Eli knelt beside him, fingers brushing the sand. His heart pounded as he examined the crate. He could almost feel the presence of his father, the legacy that had been hidden for decades, guiding him. "Should we open it?" he whispered. Hale gave a curt nod, slowly, carefully. Together, they lifted the lid. Inside was a small, sealed container with a digital lock, an encryption only Ghostline could set. Eli's hand shook as he recognized the code pattern from his father's notes in the notebook. He entered the sequence slowly, each number resonating with memories of the training and instinctual drills Hale had run him through. The lock clicked. Inside, they found a high-tech device, a GPS tracker, a secure communication module, and a small, encrypted drive labeled with his father's handwriting. For Eli, Step 1, trust your instincts, follow the trail. Jackson. Eli's eyes widened. Step 1. Hale glanced around cautiously. Yes, this is only the beginning. Ghostline planned for this. He never does anything half-measured. Every message, every piece of equipment, it's all part of a larger plan, and if someone else knows about it, they'll try to intercept it. Eli picked up the GPS tracker, feeling the hum of its active signal. "It's sending a location," he whispered, "somewhere in the desert or beyond." Hale's face darkened. "Then we follow it, but we move fast. Whoever's hunting him, or now you won't wait." They packed the crate into the vehicle, checking every angle of the canyon for signs of movement. Eli's instincts screamed at him, whispering caution. The desert was quiet, almost unnaturally so, and somewhere out there, unseen eyes were tracking every motion. As they drove toward the next set of coordinates, the GPS device beeped, marking a path across rough terrain that would take them through canyons, dry riverbeds, and ancient ridgelines. Hale didn't speak much, letting Eli lead with the device. Every so often, he would glance at the boy, seeing the tension in his shoulders, the determination in his eyes, and the faint shadow of the legend his father had left behind. Hours later, as the sun dipped below the horizon, they arrived at a hidden drop point, a small, abandoned outpost buried in the rocks. The GPS indicated that Ghostline had been here recently, but there was no sign of him now. Only the evidence of his presence: footprints, a carefully concealed water container, and another encrypted message tucked beneath a rock. Eli retrieved the note with trembling hands. The handwriting was unmistakable. Step 2, trust no one. Shadows are closer than you think. Move silently. Jackson. Hale's expression darkened. Step 2, he muttered. And they're already watching. We're not alone, Eli. This network your father discovered, they're active, and they know we're following the trail. Eli's heart raced. The desert wind howled around them, carrying dust across the rocky outpost. Somewhere out there, enemies were closing in, shadows moving in synchrony with the setting sun. And somewhere further ahead, Ghostline waited, orchestrating a game that had begun decades ago. Eli looked at Hale, determination replacing fear. I'm ready, sir. Whatever comes next, I can handle it. Hale gave a sharp nod. Good, because there's no turning back now. And Eli, the real danger is what's in front of us. It's what we don't see yet. Ghostline always planned 3 moves ahead, and we're about to discover why. As darkness fell, the canyon seemed to close in around them. Every shadow could be an enemy, every sound a signal. The first real stage of the hunt had begun. And Eli Carver, son of Ghostline, was no longer just a recruit. He was a player in a game far larger than he had ever imagined. The hunt had begun, and somewhere in the night, eyes watched, waiting for the moment to strike. Night had fully descended over the desert, swallowing the canyon in darkness so deep it felt almost physical. Eli Carver crouched beside the rusted outpost, his breath coming in slow, controlled bursts. The GPS tracker hummed softly in his hand, a quiet pulse of life in the oppressive shadows. Hale moved beside him, eyes scanning every ridge, every crevice, every flicker of movement in the distance. This is what I warned you about, Hale murmured, voice low, barely audible over the desert wind. Ghostline's enemies, they strike without warning, vanish without a trace, and they've known we were coming since the moment you fired that shot. Eli's pulse quickened. Do we know how many there are? Hale shook his head. Number could be 1, could be 20, could be 100, doesn't matter. They're fast, precise, and lethal, and they're about to test you. A faint rustle echoed from the canyon walls, so subtle it could have been the wind. But Eli felt it in his gut, a primal instinct flaring up in his chest. He glanced at Hale. Something out there, he whispered. Hale didn't respond immediately, his eyes narrowing. Then, without a word, he crouched lower, moving silently to the edge of the ridge. Eli followed, heart pounding, every muscle coiled. The desert around them seemed to hold its breath. Suddenly, a shadow detached itself from the canyon wall, a figure moving with deliberate precision. One, then another, too many to count in the dark. They were armed, armored, and clearly trained. Ghostline's enemies had arrived. Contact, Hale whispered. Engage only if necessary. Let them reveal themselves first. Eli's hands gripped his rifle. Every instinct screamed at him to move, to fire, to act. But Hale's words kept him frozen, watching, waiting. The figures moved with ghost-like coordination, scanning, patrolling, probing the outpost. Every step they took was calculated, every shadow deliberate. Eli's mind raced. He could feel the lessons of the past days, the observation drills, the pattern recognition, the mental acuity exercises rising to the surface. He noticed subtle tells, a slight hesitation in the movement of one soldier, a flash of reflection from another's helmet, the rhythm of their patrol. Ghostline's teaching, passed down through instincts and legacy, was alive in him. "They're testing us," Hale whispered. "See how we react, see how alert we are." Eli nodded, breathing slow, pulse steadying. He raised his rifle slightly, aiming at a figure patrolling the perimeter, but Hale's hand shot out, gripping his shoulder. "Not yet. Patience." Minutes stretched into eternity. Then came the first signal, a faint metallic click, almost imperceptible. Eli's eyes snapped to a figure attempting to disable the outpost's old communication system. "Now," Hale whispered. Eli fired. The shot rang out, precise and clean. The figure dropped silently, caught off guard. The other operatives reacted instantly, taking cover behind boulders and outcroppings. Shadows erupted into motion. Bullets whipped through the air, ricocheting off rocks, sending sparks into the night. Hale moved like a predator, firing, ducking, and using the terrain for cover. Eli followed, instinct and training guiding his every move. For a moment, chaos reigned. The rogue operatives advanced, but every step forward was met with calculated resistance. Eli realized something terrifying. These enemies weren't just hunting. They were executing a strategy as precise as Ghostline's own. "Fall back to the ridge," Hale barked, and they moved, rolling over rocks and sand, weapons ready. Eli felt the thrill and terror of combat, the sharp clarity of adrenaline sharpening every sense. One operative broke from cover, rushing toward Eli with a knife drawn. Time slowed. Eli's training, his instincts, and the legacy of Ghostline converged. He sidestepped, using the momentum to bring the rifle butt into the attacker's shoulder, flipping him off balance and neutralizing the threat silently. Hale's eyes met his, a flicker of approval passing between them. "Good, keep moving." The firefight intensified. Shadows danced across the canyon walls, illuminated by muzzle flashes. Eli's heart pounded, every breath measured, every shot precise. He felt a surge of confidence, the culmination of everything Hale had trained him to recognize: timing, precision, patience, and instinct. But just as quickly as the fight had begun, it paused. A strange, eerie quiet fell over the canyon. The rogue operatives had retreated, leaving no bodies, no evidence, only the lingering tension in the air. Eli scanned the dark ridges, every shadow a potential threat. "They're ghosts," Hale muttered. "Disappear as quickly as they arrived. That's why your father called them ghosts, too. You can't predict them, you can't follow them, you can only react." Eli's pulse began to slow, but his mind was racing. He had survived the first real confrontation. He had fought shadows and lived. But the knowledge that more were coming, watching, learning, preparing for the next encounter, pressed down on him. Hale knelt beside him, pulling a small map from his pack. "Step 2 isn't just finding your father, it's surviving this trail long enough to reach him. These attacks, they'll escalate. The network your father uncovered, they don't forgive, they don't forget, and they don't fail often. And they now know your skills exist. They'll target you directly." Eli's hands shook slightly as he looked at the map, tracing the path forward. Every ridge, every riverbed, every canyon could conceal an ambush. Every step could be the difference between life and death. "We move at first light," Hale continued. "We follow the next GPS coordinate your father left, and we stay alert. Every move, every sound, every shadow is a potential threat. Trust your instincts, Eli. They'll guide you." Eli nodded, his mind sharpening despite the exhaustion, fear, and adrenaline. He understood now. The legacy he had inherited was more than skill. It was awareness, patience, and the ability to read the world in ways most people couldn't even imagine. Ghostline had left him more than a path to follow. He had left him the tools to survive it. As dawn approached, Eli crouched beside Hale on the ridge, eyes scanning the canyon below. The rogue operatives had vanished into the darkness, but the knowledge that they were still out there, watching, analyzing, and planning, hung over them like a storm cloud. Eli's grip on the GPS tracker tightened. "We'll find him," he whispered almost to himself. "We have to." Hale placed a hand on his shoulder. "We will. But remember this, Eli, your father never wanted this to be easy. If it were easy, it wouldn't be Ghostline's legacy. And if it were easy, you wouldn't be ready for what comes next." The canyon remained silent, almost hauntingly so, as the first rays of sun pierced the horizon. The shadows of the night had receded, but their presence lingered, a reminder of the dangers yet to come. Eli Carver, son of Ghostline, had survived the first encounter, proven himself against the shadows hunting him, and taken the first steps into a world where every moment could be his last. But the rogue network was patient, and they were already planning their next move. The hunt was far from over, and somewhere beyond the ridges, Ghostline was waiting, one step ahead, orchestrating the next stage of a deadly game. Eli knew one thing with certainty. The next confrontation would not be a test. It would be war. The desert was quiet, almost deceptively so, as Eli Carver and General Marcus Hale approached the final set of coordinates. The sun had long set, leaving only the faint glow of starlight and the pale light from the moon to guide them. Every step forward felt like stepping into a shadowed history, a world where ghosts of the past and present collided. Eli's grip on his rifle was steady, his breathing measured, every sense heightened from weeks of relentless training, danger, and near-death encounters. "This is it," Hale said quietly, scanning the ridges. "Step 3, the last piece. Your father is close, but so are they. Ghostline's enemies, they've been shadowing us, and they'll strike at the moment they believe we're weakest." Eli's pulse quickened. "Do we know where he is exactly?" Hale shook his head. "No, but if Ghostline sent you here, he's left a trail that only someone with his instincts could follow. That trail ends tonight, and Eli, be ready. This won't be a drill, this won't be a test, this will be real, life and death." They moved silently, using natural cover, the faint hum of the GPS tracker pulsing with the presence of the final drop point. Suddenly, the desert floor shifted slightly under Hale's boot, a subtle anomaly barely perceptible. He froze. "Something's here," Hale whispered. "They're close." From the shadows emerged figures, rogue operatives, the network that had haunted Ghostline for decades. But there was a difference this time. They were not moving as individuals. They were a coordinated strike team, surrounding the ridge from multiple angles. Their weapons glinted under the moonlight, eyes trained with cold precision. Eli's heart raced, but he felt the calm wash over him, Ghostline's instincts, his father's legacy, guiding him. He scanned the positions, memorizing angles, counting operatives, noting patterns. His pulse slowed. His mind, trained, prepared, and instinctual, began to formulate the sequence of actions necessary to survive. "They want to isolate us," Hale murmured. "Don't let them move, strike, survive." Eli followed Hale's lead, using shadows and terrain, silently taking out the first pair of operatives with precise shots. Each movement was deliberate, calculated, a dance of instinct and skill. The network's operatives responded instantly, advancing with coordinated aggression. Then from the darkness, a familiar figure emerged. Eli froze, his breath caught. Jackson Carver, Ghostline, stood at the far edge of the canyon, silhouetted against the faint glow of the GPS device. He was lean, hardened, every motion precise, every glance calculated. Eli's father had aged, yes, but his presence was magnetic, almost otherworldly, a man who had survived decades of danger, betrayal, and secrecy. "Eli," Ghostline said, his voice calm but firm, carrying authority that sent a shiver down Eli's spine. "You made it. I knew you could, but we're not safe yet. They know your skills now, and they'll stop at nothing to claim what I've built, what I've protected. Are you ready?" Eli swallowed hard. "I am ready, sir. I won't fail." Ghostline's eyes softened for a brief moment before hardening again. Good, then let's finish this. The canyon erupted into chaos. The rogue network attacked with ruthless precision, but Ghostline and Hale moved like shadows, coordinating with Eli as if he had always belonged to their rhythm. Every shot Eli fired, every movement he made, was a reflection of the training, instincts, and legacy passed down from his father. Eli ducked behind a boulder, analyzing the operative's strategy. A cluster of them moved to flank Ghostline. Eli adjusted his aim, calculating trajectory and distance, and fired. One operative dropped. Another went down with a precise follow-up shot. The network faltered. "Keep moving," Ghostline shouted, advancing. "They underestimate you, use it." Eli's heart raced. His fear was present, yes, but it had transformed into clarity, precision, and determination. Every movement was instinctual, every shot deliberate. And then he saw it, a high-tech device the operatives carried, one capable of tracking GPS signals and intercepting communication. If they activated it, the trail to Ghostline would be lost forever. He sprinted across open ground, dodging fire, diving into cover, and smashed the device with the butt of his rifle. Sparks flew, and the enemy operatives paused, giving Ghostline and Hale the opening they needed to neutralize the threat. In the aftermath of the first wave, silence fell again. The rogue network had retreated, leaving only evidence of the chaos behind. Hale breathed heavily, surveying the terrain. "They've underestimated us," he said. Eli looked toward his father, still cautious, every muscle tensed. "Is it over?" he asked. Ghostline shook his head. "Not yet, they'll regroup, but this is the moment I've been preparing for. This is the moment I hand the legacy to you." He stepped closer to Eli, his eyes intense. "You have the skills, the instincts, the patience, and the courage. You're not just my son, you're my successor. And together we'll finish what they started, protect what matters, and survive. But it will test you, Eli. It will push you beyond everything you know." Eli nodded, determination burning in his eyes. "I'm ready, sir. I won't let you down." Ghostline smiled faintly, a rare expression that held both pride and sorrow. "I know you won't. That's why I reached out. You've already proven yourself. The first attack was merely a test. What comes next will define everything." Hale placed a hand on Eli's shoulder. "You've come a long way, but remember, the enemy knows your potential now. They'll strike smarter, faster. You've inherited Ghostline's legacy, Eli, and that means the stakes are higher than ever." Eli tightened his grip on the rifle, feeling the weight and responsibility of his father's shadow. "I understand, whatever it takes." From the shadows, another sound emerged, a faint hum of engines and the distant crunch of sand. The network wasn't finished. They were regrouping for a final strike, determined to eliminate Ghostline and now his son. Ghostline signaled to Hale and Eli. "We move. Stay low, stay fast, every step counts. And Eli, trust your instincts. They're sharper than mine ever were at your age." They advanced silently, moving through the canyon, blending with shadows, every sense alert. The rogue network's final attack could come at any moment, and Eli's pulse thrummed like a drum, every beat aligned with the legacy coursing through his veins. Then, at the apex of the canyon, they found the final clue, an old communications hub, long abandoned but rigged with encrypted signals. Ghostline approached it, his fingers deftly navigating through the interface. "This is it," he said. "The central node. The evidence we need to dismantle their network once and for all, but it's guarded, and they'll defend it to the death." Eli's heart raced. He had trained, he had fought, and now he was standing on the precipice of the ultimate challenge. The network, the rogue operatives, the shadows, they were all waiting. And the final battle, the culmination of decades of planning, skill, and survival, was about to unfold. Ghostline turned to him. "Are you ready to inherit the full legacy?" Eli nodded, resolve burning in his eyes. "I'm ready, let's finish this." The canyon erupted once more, a storm of bullets, shadows, and strategy. Eli moved with precision, every shot a reflection of everything Ghostline had passed down. Hale covered him, coordinating every movement. And in the center, Ghostline orchestrated the chaos with near-supernatural precision. Hours passed, or perhaps minutes. Time became meaningless in the storm of action. When the smoke cleared, the rogue network lay defeated, their plans dismantled, their forces scattered. Silence returned, heavy and profound. Eli fell to his knees, exhaustion and adrenaline intertwining. Hale placed a hand on his shoulder. "You did it," he said simply. "You survived. You protected the legacy." Ghostline approached, placing a hand on his son's shoulder. "You've proven yourself, Eli, not just as my son but as Ghostline's successor. You have the instincts, the skill, and the courage. And now, you carry the legacy forward." Eli looked into his father's eyes, understanding the weight, the sacrifice, and the responsibility. "I won't fail," he said quietly. Ghostline smiled, rare and genuine. "I know you won't. The desert, the shadows, the enemies, they were only the beginning. But now, Eli, now you're ready for everything." As the first light of dawn broke over the desert, Eli Carver, son of Ghostline, stood beside his father and General Hale, victorious, determined, and transformed. The hunt had ended. The legacy had been claimed. But the future, full of shadows, challenges, and the unknown, awaited. And Eli knew one thing with certainty. He was ready for it. The desert stretched endlessly before them, a silent witness to a legacy reborn. The story of Ghostline and his son had reached its first conclusion, but the echoes of their legend would resonate forever.